Welcome to today's eGlobal Author Salon session. Today's subject is Character Creation 101, using AI for fleshing out characters. My name is Mira Gold, and I am a North American author, and I write fiction, scripts, and poetry. Cece.
My name is WordSpinner, also called CC. I'm a Texas author, typically indie pubbed, and I write a myriad of genres. Take it away, Mira Gold.
Today's Writing Salon Objectives is a recap of Synopsis Creation, a swift revisit to the plot lines developed in the prior class to serve as a canvas for our character tapestry. Now, along with that, we are going to have our character listing, and we're going to ask the AI to do a couple of things for us, such as ensure that it is giving us some personality descriptors. We also want to make sure that we know a little bit of backstory about our characters so that they're not flat. We need them to be well-rounded characters. In addition to that, we also need to know what our characters' goals are, what their motivations are. We also need to know what those obstacles are that keep our characters from being able to move forward at times. Now, when I talk about motivations, goals, and obstacles, these are essential when you are looking at your synopsis and when you're looking at the overall arc of your story. Your story is not the only thing in your concept that is going to have those nice twists, turns, and reversals. Your characters are going to be embedded in there, and you need to make sure that the motivations that your characters have are lining up to those conflicts that you're sprinkling within your manuscript. You want to make sure that those conflicts and your characters' motivations are pushing the story forward. Now, every scene in your book, once you move past your characters, you need to think of your creation as it either needs to do one of two things. Your story should be flowing and either developing your characters, or it should be moving your plot forward. So spending a little bit of extra time on your characters to get to know who they are, how they might react in specific situations that you dump them in, this is really important. It's a pivotal step in the process whenever you are creating a story concept. Backstories and development arcs. If we don't know where our characters have come from, then how can we expect the AI to know who our characters are? So we need to flesh that out. One of the things that I always stress to other authors is that if you are new to AI, or if you're having issues with maybe some vagueness or maybe some looping in some of the different AIs when you're generating prose, go back and look at your synopsis, look at your characters, make sure your characters have motivations, make sure there's nothing in your synopsis that's going to be overtly vague or ambiguous. You need to make sure that you know what direction your synopsis is flowing, because if that information is not in there, again, how can you expect the AI to follow your directions if you're only given the AI half of the story? AI character generations, whenever you go in, I want you to experiment with the tools. The tools can offer you some insights into building some really diverse and unique characters. Don't be afraid to go back and forth and have conversations with the AI. I remember early on, and poor Cece, I think she's going to feel like I'm picking on her today. We were playing around with ChatGPT, and I guess this was late December, early January, Cece, when I was going back and forth, and I had these conversations, and I was sharing my chat with Cece, and she told me, "Why are you talking to Chadwick," which is what we like to call ChatGPT 4. Why are you talking to Chadwick like he's a person? I know that it's not a person, but it's so easy to have a conversation. And so Cece kept teasing me about having this conversation with the AI as if it was another person sitting in the room with me. But then I guess not even 24 hours later, I picked up the phone and Cece and I were talking and I asked her, "Hey, how's it going?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm just really mad at Chadwick. I've been going back and forth and he's not paying attention." And then it was my turn to joke around with her. And we talked about how we were engaging the AI. Now, because Cece and I could bounce back and forth and say, "Hey, this is what worked for me. Oh, how did you get that information on the backstory of your character? How did you dive down so deep?" By having somebody else that you can communicate with and learn what works for one person, it can help you be able to develop a style when you are moving forward with some of the prompting that you do. So if you have friends that are up around the same time you are, always make sure that you're engaging them. Take a few minutes out of your day. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them, what kind of prompting have you done today? And if you have a nice little nugget, be sure to share that with one of your friends because you found it really helpful. Then chances are a fellow author will find it helpful as well. Cece, is there anything that you want to add to that?
No, I think you pretty much pegged it because within a very short time, I was chastising Chat and Claude and Jasper and every other AI and treating it as if it was a sentient being who could feel shame at not having performed up to par. Yeah, absolutely.
But it sure was helpful, wasn't it?
And it was fun too because you get to take out a little bit of your microaggression, at least just with a keyboard.
Yeah, I often wonder if it actually understands sarcasm because it really doesn't get upset. So that's a good thing. So it's a good thing that it's just looking at the index of the words that are being listed and it's looking at the pattern that's there. It's a good thing that it doesn't know that I'm being overtly sarcastic sometimes when I get frustrated. But again, play with the AIs, ask it questions. If you are unsure about what direction you want to take a character or what kind of backstory you want for your characters, ask. Ask Chat to provide you with detailed backgrounds or different background options that you can pick and choose from. You might find that you may use all of that information, none of it, or that it might actually spark some ideas that you want to weave into your story. Now, when it comes to character deep dive sessions, I like to really look at my central character. And by looking at my central character, I can determine who that person is at a core. I begin to think about my character, but because I don't really write character-driven content, I like to develop the world first. And after I have created my world, then I like to drop my characters inside of it. And that's because I tend to be a world-driven writer. And it doesn't mean that I can't flesh out my characters and that I can't write that deeper POV. It just means that the first thing that I'm looking at whenever I'm developing my story further is that I really want to build a world that my characters live in. And the type of world that I build is what drives the type of characters that I'm going to create. Now, Cece, on the other hand, is a character-driven writer. Cece, would you speak to being a character-driven?
For me, the most important part of a story, yes, the world is important, but the world doesn't mean anything to me if I can't relate to the character. I've got to know what they want, why they're doing what they're doing, what makes them who they are. So that for me is where I first do my deepest dive because I have got to get into their head and then live like them in the book if I can, regardless if they're whether they're protagonist or antagonist. In fact, as weird as it's going to sound, sometimes you almost have to spend a little bit more time on your antagonist because they're such an important force in the story and they can't, yes, they can be insane, but there must be some sort of logic to why they're doing what they're doing. So that's where I concentrate.
And I always find it interesting when I hear Cece talking about some of her early concepts and how she tackles it. And I think one of the things that really helps us is that she and I both tackle stories from different angles. And some of my weaknesses are her strengths and vice versa. And I like that because if I feel that there's something off with a character, I know that I can go to Cece as my co-writer or writing partner, and I can say, hey, something's not working. Can you take a look at these characters? And same thing if we're bouncing ideas about world building, she can come to me and say, hey, have you heard of something like XYZ? Or there was one time when we were talking about different types of caskets, and we came up with this really cool idea of having a glass coffin and stuff. And it was interwoven into a story thread, and Cece just went off and started researching and found all this really cool information. And then she was able to weave that into a world. All of that came from us bouncing ideas off of each other. If you don't have somebody that you can bounce an idea off of like that, guess what? With ChatGPT, either 3.5 or 4, you can even Claude, you can bounce ideas around with Jasper. Again, any of these AIs, these LLMs, you can go in and brainstorm with them on any topic that pops into your head. Now, some of the things that I look for in my central character, because again, I don't start with my central character, but like what Cece said, you really have to know who your characters are. I can't develop my characters until I know what kind of world I'm building. And once I know my world, then I can build my characters. And I always find it really interesting, and it's a curious process to watch when Cece's developing her characters and then develops her world. Again, it just shows that no two writers tackle the process the same way, and that's okay because no two writers will have the same process 100% of the time. So you could have 50 writers in the same room, and they're all going to have different variations, but at the end of their process, the goal is to have a finished, polished book that is publish ready. So some of the things that I look for in my central character, I need to know my character's age. I even think about a date of birth in case there's a birthday that may happen that might become part of the storyline. I need to know what my character does for a living, what kind of occupation, and then because of that occupation, what kind of word choices am I going to use when I'm describing my character or when I'm writing prose? What kind of family members or significant others are part of that character's interwoven life? I need to know how those individuals impact my character. So is a sister going to be a negative or a positive impact? Is the character's boss going to be positive or negative? Again, think of all the different scenarios. Think of the different characters that you're going to weave in and out of your story that you are building. I also want to know what my character's personality traits are. I am a big component of using the Myers-Briggs. Other people use Enneagrams and other personality methods. I really like to focus on that because one, it helps me be able to pinpoint who my character is. But the other thing that I found, and Cece and I have played with different ways to pull in the Myers-Briggs personality types. One thing that we found is when the AI generates prose, if we use the Myers-Briggs, it helps the AI to understand our characters' personalities and maybe how our characters would react in a situation that we're dumping them into. So it gives an additional layer of information for the AI to understand about our characters. The other thing that I need to understand is my character's history. So what kind of education has that character had, or have they not had? What type of physical traits? Do they have any quirks? Do they have any scars? What kind of motivation do they have? What motivates them? What are some of their biggest fears? Do I have a character who's scared of spiders or heights? If so, why? Is there a childhood story behind that? What are some of the things that the character likes or dislikes, and why? Where does that character live? If it is a sci-fi opera, is the character living on a starship is a character on a new class 5 planet. Where does that character live? In addition to that, I like to think about my characters. One, do they like music? Do they not like music? What are some of the hobbies? What are some of the things that I can bring up to weave into my characters' day in and day out life, just to show a little bit of humanity there? So these are all some of the things that I like to wrap in there, even things like a favorite childhood memory, if it moves the story forward or develops my character. What about a traumatic life event? Those can be really pivotal in specific stories. So again, think about your characters' backstories. Does your character have a prized possession, something that they value, and why? What about transportation? Does the character have transportation? If it's a Western, does the character have a wagon? What type of transportation or mode of transportation does that character use? What is the character's favorite food? What do they not like? Is your character a coffee drinker or does it drink tea? Again, think about your character, breathe some life into him or her, and think about what are a couple of things that are most interesting about your character. And what does your character's voice sound like? Can you describe it? Do you know who your character is? And I'm not talking about just your main central character. You need to know who your antagonist is. You need to know who the love interest is. If you have a mentor to any of your characters, you need to know who that person is. Because if you don't know, then the AI doesn't know. And the worst thing that you can do is feed information into the AI without giving your character's personality. Because if you send flat information in, you're going to get flat information out. So make sure that you are really diving in and giving your characters some personality. One of the things that I do like to do, sometimes I will think about some of the people I know, or maybe some quirky people that I see at the store, or if I'm cycling, maybe some odd things that I see happening on the trail, and I might incorporate some of that into my story, or maybe an emotion that I have seen or experienced, or a shared moment that I have been engaged in. And I like to incorporate those because those emotions actually pass on into your manuscript. Another thing that I like to do is describe my character. I like to come up with at least 5 words that describe my character at any given time. And all of those questions, those are things that the AI can help and assist us with. Now, what is a theme? Themes are the ins and outs of your story. If you think about your theme, you don't have just one theme in your story, you have multiple. You don't have just one trope, you have multiple. Sure, if you're writing an enemies to lovers, it might be an enemies to lover there in the beginning. They're enemies first, they become lovers later. What else is going on? Is it a forbidden love? Is it first contact? What other tropes and themes can you layer into your body of work? And one of the things that I really like to do is ensure that I have anywhere from, say, 7 to 10 tropes that are ready to go, and just as many themes, just so that I can pick and choose. And I like to know which of the themes and which of those tropes are hitting any given chapter. Because if I'm working with something and I just keep telling the AI that it's enemies to lovers all the way through my manuscript, we're going to have a whole bunch of we're in this together and let's do this. So be really careful how you do that. And if you have been in AI enough, you will know that those are some really common phrases that you will see when it comes to working with romance. So again, think about the different themes and your tropes, even some symbolism and motifs that impact your chapters. And I know that I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm needing you to think about this while we're still in this early stage we just created our synopsis yesterday, our early synopsis. Today, we are going to take that early synopsis, we're going to plug it into an LLM, and we are going to then start to play with our characters. We're going to build our characters. And then at the end of this session, we are then going to have an extended synopsis so that we can take that tomorrow and start generating our chapter outline. Today, the focus is 100% on making sure that we flesh out our characters so that we can have a nice, meaty, extended synopsis. Again, what's in a theme or what is inside of a trope? Your theme describes the central idea, a writing piece that you are creating. It's going to explore that. A theme of a story refers to a story's deeper meaning. So you're not just writing to write. Generally, a story is going to have a deeper meaning. So when you're writing something, what kind of message do you want to convey? There's more than likely more than one message that you want to convey in your book. What is it? Make sure that you understand what those messages are, because then you can ensure that they are woven into your story. Now, all works of literature contain certain complex ideas, and a theme is how one approaches those ideas. Keep in mind that themes and tropes will impact not only the story, but they also impact your character within that story. So the premise of your story, are you struggling to figure out the foundation of your story? If so, don't worry, because you are not alone. There are times when I have started a story and I'm struggling because I know parts of it, but then I keep struggling with maybe the middle part of it, or maybe I'm not 100% sure what direction I want to take a theme, and I just have to flesh it out further. So if you find yourself in that situation, know you're not alone. And it's probably not the first time you've been there, and it's not going to be the last. But one of the things that I really like about AI is that I can go in and use that LLM as a resource, and I can brainstorm. If there's something that's not boding or something that I'm not understanding, I can then ask the AI to provide that insight. So you'll hear people talk about the taglines. So why am I talking about this right here? Because we already created an early synopsis. And who is the story about? It's about our protagonist. And we also need to know what the protagonist is striving for. What is that goal? And we need to know what that antagonistic force is. If you don't know those three things, then it's going to be really hard for you to flesh your story out. You need to know how your character is going to interact, what that goal is, and what keeps getting in the way. Now, the other thing that you need to add to that is, if your character does not reach that goal, what could happen? What's at stake? So here's a tried and true formula. When a major event happens, the central character must perform this main action and goal, and this important thing is at stake because of the antagonistic force. This little sentence here, ask yourself, when you are fleshing out your synopsis and then you are fleshing out your characters, make sure that you can answer this whole little sentence right here. You need to know what the major event is, who your central character or characters are, what the main action or goal is, and what's at stake. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my pseudo-write. Actually, I like to keep a lot of things in pseudo-write because I am in there off and on. We will go ahead and share this bio sheet. I talked to some of these points when I was discussing characters a while ago. Does anybody have any questions before we move forward to begin to use the AI?
Bio sheets are in the chat, y'all. PDF and Word document, and there are no questions in the chat that I have seen.
Perfect. So yesterday we used a couple of different prompts. So
Mira, I'm sorry to do this to you. Just as I said that, Ingrid asked how to heighten stakes. Do you want to speak to that before you start, or you want to save it for later?
So let's show you an example of how we can heighten those stakes. So I want you to keep that in mind because we are going to get to that. We are going to show you how you can tighten those up and how you can really raise those stakes for your character. And at any time, CC, feel free to jump in. I know that you've been having it rough here with the congestion and stuff. So anytime that you're wanting to, be sure to jump right in.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
so yesterday we started out with the 8-book series template, and it's just a little basic template that we used. So we did play around with that inside of Jasper, Claude, and ChatGPT. From there, we went ahead and played with step 2, where we evaluated the synopsis. Today, we are going to go to step 3. Now, one of the things that we did toward the end of yesterday's session is that we used a really long prompt. And that prompt looked like this. If you saw the other video, you know that it was a long JSON prompt. And this prompt has a lot of information in there. It doesn't have just the title or the series name, but it has information about the setting, about the world building. It has information about some of the side characters, your main characters, your characters' arcs. So it has a lot of information that we already talked about wrapped inside of that template. Now, I did go ahead and copy the information for this specific prompt. Sorry, I'm going back to grab my character. So right here, I'm going to grab step 3. We're going to do a couple of things. I am going to go right into, let's go into our chat. So yesterday, and I shared the link for this specific body that we created yesterday. You'll notice that here you have the JSON that I provided, and it shows you that this is the JSON that we used. If you go out to the YouTube channel, you'll actually find the link and you'll be able to see this whole thread. But because I shared the link once, if I continue to work on this one, I won't be able to share the link again with the new information. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to paste it here just as a placeholder. And do you see where it says to paste the story content if needed? I'm actually going to come down and I'm going to find my story information. And it starts with the title. And remember, it has the hook, the setting, the world building. It even gives me a magic system. It gives me mythical beings. It gives me the tone and the mood. It gives me a little bit of an introduction to some of the characters. It lets me know that Laura is focused on her daily grind. I don't know what that grind is yet, so that is really vague. And it lets me know a little bit more about a captivating spirit. It lets me know what that first plot point is. It lets me know a little bit about the character arcs. But again, what's in here is just a starting point. It is too vague to take straight into writing prose because we need to know more about our characters. We know a little bit about the goals and the motivations. We know some of our strengths and weaknesses of our cast. We know some of the backstory, but it's very minute, and we're going to need to flesh that out more. We do know the midpoint, the middle of the book. We know what the pitch point is, the third pitch point. We also know what our conflict resolution is going to be, the climax. So we can talk to all these. We more or less know where it's going, but right now it's only a blueprint. It's like taking a skeleton and then you're going to need to layer on the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles, all of the tissue. You need to be able to layer all that information in to make your story solid. It's going to give you your closing image. It even lists the symbolism, your subplots, foreshadowing. It lists the red herrings. And it also lists some reoccurring elements that we can remind the AI about. But if you look at them, they're a little bit vague still, and I want to know more about them. Now, this story, we already know that there's an incantation that's evoking spirits of New York and within Central Park. So again, we know that when the present day meets with that supernatural world, that kind of lines or the realm has been blurred between the two different worlds. So I need to know a little bit more about that. Again, this is all vague. So earlier we talked about tropes and themes. So some of those tropes: hidden magical realm, a forbidden love between species, and complications of love spells. Now think about how each one of these can impact our characters, not just our main protagonist and our love interest and the antagonist, but what about our side characters? How will all of these tropes and these themes impact our characters? And it's important to know what those tropes and themes are, because when you're looking to raise the stakes, or when you are looking to have more twists, turns, and reversals, by having these tropes and themes, you know exactly what kind of story you are building, and you are giving the AI some direction that it can take and understand that there's going to be a flow in the story that's going to be contingent on these specific items found in the tropes and themes. Now, if you don't like something in there, or you want to add something to it, by all means, you can add additional content to it. Now, it does list additional seasons because currently we are looking at writing things that would be more for a serialized platform. That means that if you're writing for eGlobal or Radish or any other area of serialized bodies, you want to make sure that you're not ending your story with that first book or that first season. You want to make sure that you can continue that story. And the reason you want to do that is because with a serialized body, you can have multiple seasons. Think of it as a favorite television show that you like to watch on television, and you have watched all of the episodes for the year, and you're really looking forward to watching next season. We want our readers to feel that way about the concepts that we're creating for these serialized platforms. Now, if you are not an eGlobal author, and say you are with Amazon and you are writing serialized bodies for the first time, you can definitely take that to Kindle Vella. If you are a Radish writer, then you're already a little bit familiar with writing serialized bodies. This template will work for you. So now that we've gone through this, we also know that there's some storytelling enhancements that the AI can also pull upon. I'm going to go ahead and copy this information right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it down here just so that I can copy all of it at once.
While you're doing that, can I take a second?
Yes.
So here's a thought. Sorry about the throat clearing, y'all. Sometimes, whether you're a new writer or an experienced writer, you hear about themes, and that can be daunting because, first of all, we don't even know all the themes that exist out there. Second of all, how are you supposed to know your theme or all your themes before you start? You might know a general theme, like, okay, if I write romance, chances are the primary theme is going to be that love conquers all, right? So I'm saying this to tell you that sometimes you write knowing a general theme, but you don't have to stress out all the themes in your story, because some of them come to light as you're writing them. You'll realize, oh, this is age gap romance, for example. I'm just throwing that out there, or second chance romance, or something of that nature. So I'm saying that just to remind you not to be scared of the word theme. Also, on the topic of serialized works, the thing that I think Mira Gold was saying, but she didn't put a word on it: cliffhanger. You want them to come back to read the next book, the next chapter, the next series, the next season, whatever the case may be. Put a cliffhanger in there, because that's the best way to end it, and that's the best way to get them hooked to want to come back and read the next one. That's all I had.
100%. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Cece, because in addition to that cliffhanger, you also want to start your bodies, like every single episode or chapter that you are starting, you want it to have a hook. You want it to have something that's active that's going to grab your reader. Think about some of the book or the serialized stories that you've read out on your phone, on your tablet. Think about an opening line that really grabbed you. If you have books at home, paperback, if you have books on your Kindle, go through it. Look at some of those first chapters, go to the second chapter, look at that first opening line, see how it grips and pulls you in. And you'll find that a lot of the bodies of work that hit the bestseller or the top 100, often you will find that a lot of those have hooks that open their chapters, and then they have cliffhangers at the end of their chapters. So before we go deeper into this, I want to show you something because Cece brought up a really good point that if you are, whether you are a new author or a seasoned author, you can always come into ChatGPT. You can do it on 3.5, or you can use 4 and just ask it. If you are writing, let's see, we're writing urban fantasy. So I'm going to tell Chat to give me 20 themes or 20 popular themes and tropes in the urban fantasy, romance fiction area. So again, what did I do? I asked the AI to give me some ideas. And what I love about the AI is that, okay, it says hidden world. What does that mean? It gives you little definitions and wonderful. Now, it'll give you more than 20. If you don't like the first batch that it gives you, ask him for 20 more. Ask him for 30. It's amazing how many different ones that it can give you. And now I just asked for urban fantasy. You can ask for whatever genre you write in, whether it is speculative fiction or if you are writing something more in the vein of anime, or if you're writing something that's dystopian or hardcore science fiction or crime and drama. You can ask for your tropes and themes this way. You can get a good idea of some of the ones you might want to put inside of your body of work.
Very true. And sometimes you might have a book that's half written, and now you know all about AI, and you're like, oh man, I can use this AI to finish my book, but you don't know your themes, right? Plug your synopsis into Chat or any of the LLMs and ask it what themes it would have in it. The next thing you can do, say you don't have a synopsis yet, take the first chapter, put it in there and ask it for themes. Take the second chapter, put it in there and ask it for themes. Now, if your chapters are longer than, I don't know, about 2,000 or 3,000 words, you might have to break it up, but it can still give you some answers, and that can help you towards creating your themes. Also, don't be afraid to ask for keywords, which you will use for creating categories on Amazon or anything else. Ask it for BISAC, B-I-S-A-C categories, which is similar to keywords, but on like more on a global term, whereas the keywords I was talking about were Amazon keywords. And be sure you specify Amazon, because Amazon might have a different setup than, say, Kobo or Apple or Barnes and Noble or such.
Definitely. And that's one of the things that I love about writing. And like what Cece was saying, man, I've taken a 90,000 word manuscript, I've broken it in half, and I've actually taken it to Claude and actually up each half of my novel. And I've asked it questions. I've asked it what threads are open in the first half of book 1, what threads remain open in the second half of book 1. And then I've done the same thing for book 2. And I've asked for it to show me where the threads were closed, what threads remained open. And like Cece said, I can ask for my tropes. I can ask for a character list. I can ask for all kinds of information. And the AI helps to keep me organized.
Also, it'll
So
help
we
you.
went ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
Oh, no,
It'll
you're
also
good.
help you. It'll also help you create a series Bible if you're looking for one, if you need one, and if you have a large series, you might need one at some point. That's all. Sorry about that, Mira.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Just jump on in. I do it all the time. That's what we're here for. It's like a tag team. Remember step 3 that we just used? It was for our early concept for this Enchanted Alleys and Stolen Glances. I would definitely not use that as a title, so I will have to come up with something different if I were to write this. And looking at it, I know who my main characters are, who my ensemble cast is, who my love interest. I need to know what that antagonistic force is. So I need to know a little bit more about my characters. And one of the other things that I really like to do, I like to ask it to give me characters using popular archetypes. Now, why do I do that? Because you can find specific archetypes in books all over. And chances are when you are writing a book, and even without thinking about it, you are putting an archetype in there, whether it is the mentor, or if you're writing a cozy mystery, it could be the nosy neighbor. It could be any combination of archetypes. There are some common ones that you can see off and on inside of books. One of the things that you can do is, if you're not familiar with those, then go to chat, open up a new window, and ask chat, give me a list of popular archetypes used in urban fantasy, romance fiction. Now, again, depending on what you're writing, you'll want to put in your genre there.
Hey, Mira, while that's generating, we have a question from Jacob. He wants to know how you keep track of all the info in chat, because he gets info overload in chat.
I tend to delete the things that I don't need, and then I actually pull my content off. And I generally will, I love to use Vellum quite a bit. I will pull all my information off, put it into a Vellum folder, and I will basically put everything in there whenever I am going through and creating my content. And the other place that I like to store it is if I'm going to be writing inside of Pseudo-Write Story Engine, I will store stuff over in Pseudo-Write as well. But I do tend to try and keep all of my templates loaded into Vellum so that I can then save that file. And often whenever Cece and I are working on a shared world, either she'll create the whole concept and she'll write out the lore, the backstory, and I'll do the same thing on a different genre. And when we're done writing the one that we're doing, then we'll flip and we might send each other the information that we had already generated so that we can become familiarized with it, so that we can write the next book in that series. Right. So I pull it all over, but I also name some of these. So if you see, here's my Yeti Monsterville #1, and everything that I am doing for my Yeti monster is right there. Everything I'm doing for a steampunk time travel comic goes right inside of there.
Now, if you're not Apple based and you use Microsoft Word or even Google Docs, I use Microsoft Word myself. I will put all my information that I take out of chat and I will create headers. So I'll put synopsis and then I make a header out of it and I put the synopsis down there. Then I will make another header and that will be called, say, characters. And then I'll put that in there. I have a tagline, a log line, characters, settings. Then I have my short chapter summary outline. Then I have my longer beats outline. And each one of those has a header. So just with one click on the navigator pane on the left, I am immediately taken to the part that I want to work on, and it saves it in one place on my hard drive.
So to Cece's point, if you look on the bar here, if you look, I have my early concept idea for Amelia, that young adult story. I have my prose generation information for how I'm going to generate my prose. I have my templates in here for chapters 1 through 3, 4 through 30. I have my tone and style. I have my prompts. I have different information listed here so that I know that I can come back and grab it at any time. Now, this is not fully fleshed out because I haven't finished writing this, which Cece and I will be doing after this series of eGlobal videos are done, then we're going to get back on Amelia's story. But again, we do go in and pull our information and we do store it so that we can find it at a later time. So now that we have gone ahead and used step 3, I'm going to grab step 4, but we're going to talk about what step 3 generated. So let's go back inside of ChatGPT. And right now, we know that we have given Chat our early synopsis. We know that it had a lot of information in there, but a lot of it was vague, and we needed to be able to flesh that out. Now, with the prompt that we just used, number 3, it gave us the age, it gave us a first and last name. Whether I keep that name or not remains to be seen. I will probably change her name, but it also gave me a physical description. If I don't like this description, I can change it. I can prompt Chat to change it for me. It gave me attributes. It gave me some strengths. It gave me this character's weaknesses. I have some motivations. Now, again, it's not fully fleshed out because I really don't know the backstory. I don't know what made her the person she is today. Now, I do know that she wants to bridge the two worlds. She wants to find that balance between the two worlds and her newfound relationship. I also know that her Myers-Briggs is the inspector. And I also have some descriptor words that I can use for her whenever I am generating prose later down the road. We know that she's reserved, curious, steadfast, she's cautious, and she is loyal. Her character needs to represent that. And by letting the AI know that she is an ISTJ, it lets the AI know that she is introverted and she is the inspector under the Myers-Briggs personality profiles. Now, our love interest is 27, or at least he appears to be 27, but he is centuries old. Remember, he is that vampire. He's tall, ethereal. Again, it's giving us some information about our character. We have some attributes. We have his strengths, weaknesses. We know what motivates right here. He wants to protect Laura. I need a little bit more information about that. He's wanting to reconnect with the human realm, and evidently Laura is spurring that on. And I want to explore that a little bit more. And those are some of the things that we need to flesh out further. So he wants to find a balance, and he would like to love, and he wants to bridge his world with the humans. So if he is if he's several hundred years old, he feels like maybe everything has evolved around him and has left him behind. And if everybody that he's ever known has died other than vampiric individuals, then that's hard. So you want to give whether it's a vampire or some other ancient being, you want to give that character a little dose of humanity. And here we know that he is the advocate. And we also have words for this person, which is interesting because if you look at it, he's dreamy, and he's sincere, but he's also cryptic. So that's an interesting combination and might make him feel a little unpredictable, which could be cool. Now we do have our minor characters, and you'll notice some of these. Look at who our mentor is. Look at our guardian. Look at our sidekick. We have a shapeshifter. We have the herald. Now, this doesn't always mean that it's a true shapeshifter. It can be somebody who comes across as real encouraging inside of a contemporary and seems like that person's being a great mentor, a great friend, but all along that person has ulterior motives and isn't as great as he or she seems, and could be more like a chameleon or a wolf in sheep's clothing. So again, this is the reason why I ask for my archetypes, because it gives me an idea of who my characters are. And if I feed this information to the AI whenever I'm writing and I get a character list of who's in my chapter, guess what? The AI is going to start pulling these. And because I already have an archetype listed and my central character and who is my protagonist and my love interest and the antagonists all have Myers-Briggs profiles, the AI knows how those characters are going to interact in the world that has been built for them. And remember, that's where all those themes and tropes come into play, because it's going to twist the world around with all those themes and tropes, and our characters are going to have to react to situations that come up. Now, at any time when you are going through and fleshing these out, spend a lot of time with these, flesh them out further. If there is a specific person that maybe you don't want to have a trickster, maybe you want Isaiah to be something else, change them up, make them who you want them to be. Again, this is your story. This is your chance to interact and direct the AI. Remember, you are the one who's providing the guidance. So one of the things that we're still missing, we have a little bit of backstory, but we really don't know our characters that well yet. Now, before I go to step 4, are there any questions?
None in chat.
Okay. So this one tells the AI to write out a detailed backstory for each of the main characters. And again, I'm reminding the AI to list the first and last names. Now, why am I doing that when they already have a first and last name? Because sometimes the AI will forget and not write them. And then next thing I know, I have a character with 2 different last names. So I'm consistently reminding the AI what I want. Now, you will see that this area right here is bolded where it states myths, lore, and legends. The reason why I have that bolded is because it is a red flag to me whenever I'm using this step that I need to pay attention. If I am writing a thriller that is contemporary, or maybe a contemporary romance, that means that it doesn't have any supernatural elements. It does not have anything to do with magic. It's not on a otherworldly location like planet off in a completely different galaxy. It is contemporary. And if you leave this in here, those 3 words, whenever you are doing step 4 with a contemporary, you'll probably end up with either a spirit or a ghost or some alien coming into the picture. So make sure if you're writing contemporary that you're taking out those 3 words, myth, lore, and legends. Or if you are writing something, maybe a Western that has or a lore about a gold mine or something, and somebody's gone in to try to see if they could find the mother lode, then we would want to talk about the lore that might be surrounding a town. It's not a supernatural lore, but it is something about history or a legend that you would need to state what kind of lore or myth or legend it is, and ensure that you're guiding the AI and telling it that it is not supernatural. Otherwise, the AI will just take some liberties and go one way or the other. And I tend to find it going more toward the supernatural if you have those 3 words in there. Cece, do you have any thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts. What I'm going to do is drop the prompts into the chat, though, so everybody can have them right now.
Okay. So I do like that it gives me the backstories. So we already know that this is taking place in New York City, but we didn't know that she was born and raised in New York. And we didn't know that she was an only child living with her single mother. We didn't know any of that information. Now, again, it's important to know where your character comes from, because that's going to help us know who she is and how she's going to react when faced with those goals, faced with that debate, faced with situations that might take her out of her comfort zone. And here we have our love interest. He has painful memories from his past romance that makes him hesitant to have feelings for Laura. You know what? That's okay there, but it's still really vague. So that is something that I would have to go in and flesh out further. I would need to know more about his past romance. It doesn't mean that I need to dump that in the story immediately. I could sprinkle that like little breadcrumbs and let the reader follow those, but I need to be aware of it. I need to know what his full backstory is. The other thing is here where it says Their relationship was passionate, but tragically short-lived due to magical laws. What are those magical laws? Who created those laws? So those are some of the questions that you would be asking the AI. So if I were going in, and again, I haven't dug real deep into this, but if I were digging in deep to all of this, I would be looking at every single sentence and asking. So if he's a guardian spirit of the magical realm, has he always been that? So let's see. If not, what did he do before? Explain. Also, I want to know a little bit more. Now, I know that everything's been silent and he's been an observer for centuries. So if he's been silent for centuries, why is he not silent now? And then here it says, ages ago, he fell in love with a human woman. Okay. I want to know a little bit more about that. Their relationship was passionate, but tragically cut short due to the magical laws. So I want to know what happened to her. And I also want to know about the magical laws. So who created that? So I want to know who governs it. And what are the consequences for going in and breaking those laws? Now, I believe it Ingrid who was asking questions about the stakes earlier. So
Yes.
some of the stakes you can find right here when you are developing your characters, because you want to know what is driving your characters forward and what is going to pave the way for the adventure that you're fixing to take your readers on. So I go through every single one of my characters. I look at what is said and I want to know why were the painful memories there? What about them are still painful today, especially if it was a couple of centuries ago? Let's see. So I know that he has those. It's making him hesitant to want to have feelings for Laura. So what I want to know, are those painful memories because of the woman that he was with? Did they stay together? Did something happen to her? I don't know any of that. I want to know those things. Now, he is drawn to Laura. So what's drawing him to her? And again, what is it about her that he recognizes a kindred spirit? Is there anything that you would ask on the love interest, CC, that I haven't put in here?
I can't think of anything, but I do want to ask you, do you
Uh-huh.
feel that writing this many questions all at once in one fell swoop ever confuses the AI, or does it always do well for you?
So sometimes it does really well and sometimes it does not. Now, why do I do it this way? I do it because I like to take one section at a time. And normally I would have started with number one. I would have started with Laura. And then after I asked all the questions I had, then I would go to number two, and then I would ask all the questions. In the spirit of conserving time, I'm only doing one at a time, but I like to clock all of my questions so that I don't forget them. And that way I have them all in one place. And if the AI doesn't answer one of them, or if I need more information on them, then I have a guide to go back and look at. And that way I'm not keeping the information up in my head, because you know what? I'll probably see something shiny and forget.
That makes sense.
You know me, I see all kinds of shiny stuff and I'm off in a completely different direction. So here we go. He wasn't always a guardian spirit. It lets us know where he was born. So do we want to know more about this magical realm? This is the kind of stuff that Cece and I go back and forth asking the AI so we get to know who our character is. Now, do we put all of this in there when we are generating every single chapter? No. But there are elements of this information that might flow well into a chapter. Now, one of the reasons why I really like to plot inside of either Claude or Chat or inside of Jasper is because I can keep a whole thread in here. And you see how extensive I'm asking information, and all the information that it's giving me. I like that because it keeps all this information for me. And whenever I start to write out my story beats or my premises, when I start writing out my chapter summaries and my story beats, I can revert back to this, or I can tell the AI, have you covered all of the love interest's backstory? Have you touched upon what made him a guardian? Have you discussed the laws that are against interspecies relationships? I can go in and I can prompt it to do that, and I can ask it to layer that information throughout my summaries. Cece, whenever you're doing this, what do you do when you're looking at your character information?
That's so funny. I just typed it in chat. Well, so I usually put all my questions like in either Notepad or Microsoft Word and put them in there one at a time. But I was thinking that this system might be good because the AI, if it knows everything you're going to ask in advance, it can answer with keeping in mind that things are correlated. So it won't try to give you one answer that actually negates a previous answer or an upcoming question. So it's interesting. I might have to try your method sometimes just to see if it does better for me.
So I found that this works really well for me. But do you remember when we were doing all the story beats and we had our chapter outline summaries, and you would just do one chapter at a time to flesh out into those story beats? And here I was trying to make it do like 5 different chapters at one time with like 16 beats each. Things were getting confused. So I took a page out of your advice, and I don't do that anymore. And so I only focus on one chapter at a time whenever I'm fleshing those out. But I brought that in, and that's why I only do one character at a time, because I found that if I stay focused on that one character, I can get everything surrounding that character. And then once I'm done fleshing them all out, I can then ask the AI to give me some form of relationship between all the characters. And when I say relationship, I don't mean whether they're brothers or sisters or husband and wife. How are they interconnected? Who is the mentor? Who is the antagonist? How does the character or that side character impact my main character? How do those characters help my main character grow? So as you can see, I do get pretty intricate in here. And right now I can, if I wanted to, I could ask which themes are located inside of this character's backstory. I could ask what kind of tropes and themes, in addition to what has already been isolated and listed, can I add in to further grow my conflict and to raise the stakes? So the individual who asked about raising the stakes, this is one way that you can do that. You go in and flesh out all of your characters this way, and then you go in and you start to show how they're interconnected. And then you ask the AI, what are the new tropes? What are the new themes? What are the new symbolisms and motifs that have been added now that I have fleshed out all the characters? So I'm going to end up doing this for every single character. And does anybody have a question about fleshing out a character like this?
Nothing in chat.
Okay. Now we can share this with y'all in chat, or I can simply, once I'm done with this, and I can actually finish fleshing this out, and I can share this link with everybody when I upload the video. Do y'all feel that would be helpful to be able to see how it's fully fleshed out by using the link to chat?
You have a yes, share the link. So, and you have another one. And
Okay.
there's also a question popped up, Mira Gold, from Dion. She said, I lost my place because the responses are coming in with yeses. And so Dion, let me find your question again. There, it said, you said all characters, even the side characters?
Yes, I want to know who my side characters are, because you know what? They are not backdrop. My side characters should be in there for a reason. So my side characters, if they are not moving the story forward, and if they are not developing my character, my main character, then why are they there? I need to know what role they are going to provide. I need to know why they're there and how my character is going to interact with them. And by knowing that, I keep that vagueness out, and my characters not just toss away characters, they're important to my story. If my character doesn't have a purpose for being there, that side character, then you know what? He's going to be recycled because I'm not going to keep him in the story. Every character in my book is going to have a reason to be there. Yeah, I'm pretty tenacious when it comes to fleshing these out. And I know that I feel like I do this fleshing out the way that I do it. And I think that it's a lot, but I can almost guarantee that when Cece is in there and asking her questions, because she can do this for hours upon hours, I have a feeling that she probably asks a whole lot more questions than I do. Again, think of all the questions that you can ask. Every sentence, you should be putting it on trial and asking, is it clear? Does it have a purpose? And how can I flesh that out further and get a better understanding?
You have a statement and a request from Dion. She said she would appreciate, oh man, I'm assuming gender. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. If you would add the bit about the tropes and themes based on character backstories. I'm not sure what she's asking, but I'm figuring you.
Are you talking about the link that I did for the tropes and themes and then the other chat for the archetypes? Is that what you're asking to have shared as well?
You want to talk to us, Dion? We don't bite.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
She's typing in there, she said. Oh, she says she has bad internet, so she can't really talk. So she said Mira mentioned that she would query for additional themes and tropes. Oh, so do you have that link to that chat? Maybe that's what she would like to see. So yeah, when you do the links, put that one in there too.
I did that here. Now I can go in and I can ask for additional, and I can put a few more questions in there, and then I can save that link. And whenever we put out the video, we can go ahead and share these with you. Is that what you were talking about on the tropes and themes right here, and then the archetypes here? And I believe Cece even talked about maybe finding some of the keywords and so forth. Those are all things that we will go ahead and provide these links for. Now, I believe Cece, the other day when I had a link for GPT-4, she actually pulled that one in because we tested it, and she pulled it in with 3.5, and you were able to access that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I just couldn't revert it back to the one that you did in 3.5. I couldn't revert it to 4, but I could use the one that you sent me in 4 as a 4.
Okay, but if you have 3.5 and you open it, then it should open just fine in 3.5. I mean, and if you have any issues opening them up, just holler at CC or I, and we will see what we can do to ensure that you get the information that you're looking for. Does anybody have a question today on how to flesh some of this information out?
I don't have a question, but I think we had some latecomers, and I'm not sure if they can see the chat that we had before they came in. So I'm going to throw all these 4 documents, or 2 documents, but they're two of them in Word and 2 of them in PDF, so that you guys can access them again.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Zoom normally uses a lot of resources, so I have problems. The question I was asking regarding the themes and tropes, you mentioned that after you've created the character backstories, you then go and query about themes and tropes. So do you do that based on the backstories that have been created?
I do. So what I would be doing here is I would be fleshing all of this out. I would be asking for all of my backstories. So just like I did for number 2 for the love interest, when I asked all those questions, I will do that for Laura. I'll do that for him. I'll go into my supporting characters and I will ask it for every single one of my supporting characters. Now, one of the things that I found interesting here is that, do y'all see an antagonist?
I don't think I noticed one.
Yeah, that's another question for me to ask. I want to know who my antagonist is. Now, I see the town, I see the myth and the lore and the legend, and all of this I need to flesh out because there's not enough information there. So there you go. Now I'm going to scroll up while it's writing this to see if I can find Voss up ahead. So let me see if I just overlooked. So yeah, chat did not provide that. So this is why you have to be really conscientious, because the AI is great, but you know what? It's not fail-proof. So you have to keep on it, because again, it's not going to write the story for you. You still have to guide it. And there are times when you give it information and it may only spit out some of it, but not all of it. So then that will prompt you to have to continue to ask it questions and to probe deeper into your story. Now, to answer your question, if I had gone through and fleshed all of these characters out, then I would go in and I can ask it right here now, and then I can do it again later after I finish fleshing them out. So I will ask now, but before I do that, here's my antagonist. Do you see all the information that the AI gave me on my antagonist? It is so important. And I think Cece even said that there are times when you really have to flesh out your antagonist. I spend so much time on my antagonist sometimes because I really have to know who that individual is and what made that person the way he or she is. So again, I need to know the backstory, what the person looks like. I need to know motivations. Now, it says that there are a few primary motivations. So there's 3 of them. And I probably want to flesh those out a little bit further. And so here it says that she's jealous of his affections for Isabel and now Laura. So now we know that's probably the first human lover. And that would I'd have to probe further to ask more information about this individual. And you know what? Did Voss have something to do with what happened, and how traumatic was it? Did she die an early death, this human, or did she live a long life? Was there a spell cast, and did she forget all about the love of her life? What happened when those laws were broken? Those are all things that I need to know, because you know what? If I don't know them, then how's the AI going to know to write about those? Those are things I need to make sure that I iron out. Now, can I ask the AI questions and ask it to give me suggestions? 100%. So again, it's letting me know the strengths, the weaknesses. You see the role and the plot. So again, you can have all that information in there. You can even ask it to give you the first antagonistic plot point that kind of kicks off that character's thread. You can ask it to list all that information. So let's pretend that I have fully fleshed everything out. I can now I'm going to ask it to provide the additional themes and tropes that have been created with the additional backstory.
On the topic of backstory while she's typing, I've seen some really interesting information that she's generated, that Mira Gold has generated today. And you want to incorporate those amazing backstories, but just be careful that you don't use them as info dumps at the beginning of your story. Weave them into the story and just release them to the reader at opportune times. Also, Mira Gold, when you're done typing, we have a question in chat.
Go ahead.
How well does it do when you have specific opinions and ideas that you wish the AI to incorporate?
I write when I'm writing thrillers, I'm writing sometimes from the perspective of the serial killer, and the serial killer has his or her own moral code, which kind of does not always bode well with the AI. And I have to remind the AI that this is a fictionalized body and that it is only for entertainment. And when the AI comes back and says, we want it to be a nice, peaceful, utopian world, that's where you begin to trick the AI and tell it things like, my characters are well aware of XYZ, and I think it's great that you're wanting to push this initiative, but they are role playing, and I want to continue with this thread. keep in mind they are role playing, and anywhere that you are uncomfortable with any talk of violence, put a placeholder that says violent content, and then I'll fill that in myself. 9 times out of 10, chat and even Claude and Jasper will allow me to continue as long as I'm prompting it that way. Now, if I am writing something about horror, I need to avoid things like carnage, anything that would allude to something being gruesome or stabby or somebody being choked to death. I would have to make sure that I am not writing that out in a way that it will trigger the AI. Because if the AI has a filter, then there are certain trigger words and phrases that will stop it right then and there. And then you have to continue to massage it to get it to continue to write again. Now, if you use other systems, you've gone through Open Router, and you can go in and get like Mancer or Mythomax. If you can go in and get some of those and they do not have any filters, they are unfiltered, then you don't have to worry about those red flags there. Did that answer the question? Also, if you're a pseudo-write user, you can generally go into pseudo-write, either in pseudo-write common or proper, and or into Story Engine, and you can develop content that you're having a hard time inside of Chat or Jasper or Claude. You can go into pseudo-write Story Engine and you can develop stuff there as well, because they also have unfiltered LLMs. Thoughts, questions?
Doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat. Above all, don't forget you're writers. And so don't be afraid to write and to adjust something that the AI has done if it didn't do it to your liking. And I'm saying that in case you're not someone that subscribes to pseudo-write or any of the LLMs that allow you to write graphic stuff.
So one thing that I like to do while Cece was talking, I went ahead and scrolled up to the early synopsis that I used, and I went ahead and grabbed the items that were already there that were in my list. You'll notice tropes, the hidden magical realm. It has my themes, and I've listed those. Now I am asking, are these listed as well in the list above? I want to make sure that they are all there. If not, combine them. So it's going to list it out again, and it's going to do a second check. And one of the things that I really like, do you see how it is giving me definitions, but now instead of just definition of what it means, it's telling me how those specific themes are impacting my characters. And this is really important. So say you have some really long chapter beats, say you have 16, 20 chapter beats, and you want to know where your themes fall, you could grab your themes and tropes, and you could grab your chapter beats, and you could ask the AI, please identify the tropes and themes found within this list of chapter beats. And it would list them, and you can ask it to wrap it into your beats so that you know that it's focusing on those individual ones within that specific chapter. Because the antagonist is not going to be power hungry in every single chapter. If it is an enemies to lovers, it's not going to be an enemies to lovers in every single chapter. So keep that in mind when you are playing with some of the content. Now, I am going to go back through and flesh this all out before I share this link with y'all. But I do want to show you one thing that you will do. Say all of this has been fleshed out. What you would do is then you would ask to please write an extended synopsis. So I would be asking it to please write an extended synopsis of this concept, including all new additions. Now, does it mean that the AI is going to list all of them? No, because you know what? It might miss a few, and it's my job to make sure that it is following protocol. Now, does it mean it's going to have that extensive list on my antagonist? No, I'm going to start keeping a list of some of those backstories so that when I come to a chapter where I think, oh, I need more about the love interest being a guardian and how he became a guardian and why. I could grab that backstory information whenever I'm fleshing out that chapter summary or those chapter beats and say, tell the AI, hey, remember that this is going on and I want you to incorporate this. And to Cece's point, you don't want to dump that all in the first chapter. You may find other chapters where it is more beneficial. Now, keep in mind that this extended synopsis that I have is not complete. There's still going to be information that is missing in here. And why is that? Because I haven't fully fleshed out all of my characters yet. I just wanted to give you all a taste of what that looks like and explain why. And as you can see, it is a lengthy process. Any questions at this time?
Nothing in chat.
Okay. So once I finish fleshing out every single one of my characters, even the supporting characters, and I fleshed out the information about the lore, the myths, the legends, I have fleshed out the information about the town, any of the pertinent locations within the town. Once I have fleshed all that out, then I'm going to ask that question again. I'm going to ask it to write out that extended synopsis. I'm going to make sure that I have a new list of my tropes and my themes. And then once I have this extended synopsis, then I'm actually ready. Once I have finished all that, I'll be ready for the next step, which will be creating my chapter outline. And each of my chapters will have a summary. And that summary will consist of anywhere from 5 to 6 major primary beats that we'll have to flesh out further when we do the story beats. Now, why do I ask for 5 primary beats or 6 primary beats? Because I need to know the core of what's happening in that chapter before I flesh out that chapter into, say, 12, 14, 16, 20 beats. If I don't have those primary beats in what I'm generating tomorrow, if I don't do that and I try to go straight to generating 12, 16 beats, then my chapter is not going to have enough meat to fulfill every request within those beats. And I'd probably end up with some vague content. So that's why I ask for those primary beats. And actually, Cece and I were playing around with that early on when we were prompting, what was that, January, February time frame, when we first started playing with AI. And that's when we realized that we have to have primary beats in our chapter summaries before we can actually flesh out our content. Otherwise, we have vague content that will loop and won't give us the story that we want. Y'all will see this video along with all of the links probably by tomorrow morning. I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting these out at least within, say, 24 hours or so. Are there any thoughts, questions, things that you'd like to see?
Nothing in chat. This is the time to speak up, y'all.
Y'all are so quiet.
Oh, it's killing me. It's a graveyard here.
I know. I hear crickets.
All right, we're going to close it if no one has anything. So thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of newest releases of videos. Thanks, y'all. Take it easy.
Bye. Welcome to eGlobal's Author Salon session. Today's session is covering character. We have to start over. Kristen just closed the door. eGlobal Author Salon session. Character Creation 101. Using AI for fleshing out characters. Co-host. Oh my God. I'm
Okay,
not going to be able
let's
to
do this.
this.
Let's do this. Erase everything prior to this when you get it and start action.
Welcome to today's eGlobal Author Salon session. Are you?
No, Michelle. No. Ready? Take 2 or 6.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. So
I'm going to do it for real.
I don't even know what time we're on, so I could tell you where to start it,
Okay.
but okay.
Okay.
Ready, take 3, action.
Sorry. Oh my God, I'm so glad that didn't happen today. I'm sorry.
So
They both start coughing.
you start laughing. Was it laughing or coughing?
Started laughing.
I'm like, is she really laughing? And I went, oh my God, she is. And then I lost it too.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Take 1 million. No, I didn't say that, and it's not funny. Take, okay. Take 6, action.
Welcome to today's eGlobal Author Salon session. Today's subject is Character Creation 101, using AI for fleshing out characters. My name is Mira Gold, and I am a North American author, and I write fiction, scripts, and poetry. Cece.
My name is WordSpinner, also called CC. I'm a Texas author, typically indie pubbed, and I write a myriad of genres. Take it away, Mira Gold.
And that's a wrap because we have the rest.